Aloha everyone, my name is Alessandro and this is the Temple of Surf, the podcast. We'll give you full access to the best surfers, skaters, shapers, surfboard collectors, shop owners in the world. Discover with me their stories, the greater successes, amazing behind the scenes, and much more. This episode is brought to you by Yogi Pipe, a line of apparel created with eco-friendly materials by artisans from all over the world. Let's discover more about them and their collection on www.yogipipe.surf. Hello everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today with us Fred Hemmings, world champion in 1968, founder of the Pipe Master competition in 1971, and inducted in the Surfer Hall of Fame. Let's discover more about him, hear all his amazing stories, and much more. Hello, Mr. Hemmings, and welcome to the show. Where are you today?
Hello, I'm sitting on the windward side of the island of Oahu in the very magical Hawaiian Islands in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, very far away from Dubai.
Yes, quite far away. We are 14 hours apart. How is it going over there in Hawaii in this time of confinement due to coronavirus? Everything is fine? The people of Hawaii are okay, are safe?
Well, we're safe. That's because we're all taking precautions, but it's a very difficult situation for Hawaii because, unlike Dubai, you're a business center of that area of the world. Hawaii only has one industry, and it's tourism, and our hotels are literally empty. Waikiki, which at any given time can have 35 to 40,000 visitors in Waikiki alone, is virtually empty. So it is very, very damaging to our economy. Unfortunately, because of a number of problems, we don't have a diversified economy, and tourism's at a standstill. So it's going to have a devastating effect on the economy.
Definitely. I am Italian, so Italy as well has a lot of tourists, and summertime, it's the great period, for tourists to come and visit my country. And in effect, it's hard. But we need to keep the positive spirit. We need to protect ourselves and hoping for they find a cure or a vaccine very soon. I really hope so for the world.
I think we're all praying for that.
Yeah. So today we're not going to talk about coronavirus. We're going to talk about surf and surfing and your amazing experience. But the first question that I have for you today is, in your opinion, what is the most important thing in surfing?
Surfing is I think, one of the most appealing sports in the world because it's the most individual sport in the world. Most other sports, you have measurement, objective measurement, like in a track and field, how fast you run or how far you can jump. And basketball, there are scores, how many goals you can score in soccer or football. So all the other sports have measurements. Surfing is a very, very creative sport because you do what you want to do and there's no dictate. In other words, when you catch a wave, the wave does not tell you, well, in order to have a nice ride, you have to do this, that, or the other thing. You ride the wave as it happens. So it's a very creative sport, and you make yourself happy. If you like the wave and you ride it well, that's what counts. What someone else says is, that's their business. So it's a very creative individual sport, unlike any other sport in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. And how did you start surfing? And what was your first surfboard?
Well, I'm an elderly man getting near 75 years old. And I'm probably one of the luckiest guys in the world when it comes to surfing. I grew up in the beach in Waikiki in the 1950s as a little boy, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. I grew up in the shadow of the great men of Hawaii on the beach. Duke Kahanamoku ended up being my mentor. I grew up with the pure Hawaiian Beach Boys, and every morning they'd surf before going to work. And I grew up with some of the great pioneers of big wave riding in Hawaii. So I had that blessing. I also surfed in the 60s, which I call the golden era of surfing. The 60s, we had good equipment. There wasn't any shortboards till the late 60s, so we were all riding what are now called longboards. But they were good boards. They were relatively light. They were made of foam. But we had no crowds. I can remember going to the North Shore and getting there early and having to wait for people because I didn't want to paddle out at Sunset Beach with 12 to 15 foot surf by myself. So we had good equipment, great waves, and no crowds, and it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, of course. And at that time also it was less crowded on the lineup, so I guess there was like more wave for the surfers, right, to surf.
Oh well, like I said, there were times when I would wait for people, so there'd only be 2, 3 of us out in the lineup. There are days at Macau when it was 15 to 20 feet and absolutely beautiful long clean walls, and there'd be 3 or 4 of us out, and you'd let waves go by. You'd say, well, I'll wait for the next one, and it was a paradise.
And that was also the way you were training, right? Because I guess here today surfers, they do a lot of training, a lot of preparation, but at that time I guess you were training to be a surfer while taking a lot of waves, right?
Exactly. Well, we the word training I don't think came along until after I developed professional surfing, and the surfers actually started to go out and exercise and train to prepare themselves for competition. In my day, there was no pro surfing, and we just would surf. We would never think of it as training. We'd just go out and surf and have a good time, and that would get us in shape, for competition.
Yeah, definitely. But do you remember your real first surfboard?
Sure, I do. I came from a family of modest means. We weren't very wealthy, and my dad, when I was 8 years old, bought an old hollow surfboard. And this was before there were footboards. Most of the fancy boards were made out of balsa wood, but they were very expensive. And the balsa wood came from South America. It's a light wood. Some of the older boards were hollow boards that the famous pioneer Tom Blake made. So my first board was a hollow, and then I got a used balsa board. And then in 1959, the first foam boards started arriving from California, and I got a foam board in late 1959. So I actually surfed on hollows and old wood boards before a foam board. I pretty much retired from competition with the advent of boards getting smaller. The World Championship in Puerto Rico in 1968 was more or less the start of the shortboard revolution.
Okay. And let's talk about 1968. So there was the year that you became a world surfing champion, right? And what was the best memory of that time for you?
Let me first tell you that we were out in the water at Rincon, Puerto Rico, in 6 to 8 foot, beautiful, beautiful long surf. And I like to say that 5 waves in Puerto Rico changed my life, because those waves gave me the title of the world champion and allowed me to go on and do other things. I retired from competition. I went and worked with the television networks, and this was before there was cable television, and convinced them to come out and cover for network TV my surfing events that I created. So I created the first major pro surfing events, including the Pipeline Masters, which this year is in its 50th year. It's hard to believe that the Pipeline is now 50 years old.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, remember 50 years old, 50 years of Pipeline Master competition. Like first one, 1971, right? So it's it's amazing looking back. While I was researching for this interview, I read in internet that they define you the father of professional surfing. Do you agree with that?
Well, I fathered it. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't call myself father, but if others want, that's fine. I started the first major professional surfing event, and therefore, you could be called a father for that. There were a lot of people back then in the '60s that weren't happy with competitive surfing, so it was a difficult job. Some of the surfing magazines, there was actually an article written that said I was prostituting Mother Sea by, creating contests for money. And, my attitude back then was, well, you want to surf professionally, you can't. You don't have to.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, don't do it.
Pretty pragmatic, right?
I think so, yeah. But yeah, I special surfing. So if you want to call it being the father of it, that's, I guess, accurate.
Okay. And of course, in your career, like from competing and creating also a contest like the Pipeline Master, as you said, you met a lot of personalities in, let's say, in the surf world, in the surf industry. Is there a particular personality that is meant a lot to you, sharing time with him, with her in your surfing career?
Yeah, of course. I was a fierce competitor. So at the time, I viewed many of the surfers not from Hawaii as competition. I was on the Duke surf team, so my closest friends and colleagues were Paul Stroud, Joy Cabell, and Butch Van Arksdale, and God rest his soul, who's passed away. But I competed against literally the best surfers from each country, and I think the two best surfers from California were Mike Doyle and Corky Carroll. Mike, God rest his soul, has passed too, but Corky Carroll was the premier surfer in the '60s from Australia. I competed against what I think are the two greatest surfers ever in our time from Australia, Midget Farley and Nat Young. And of course, I competed against the great surfer from Peru, who won the 1965 Peruvian, Felipe Pomar. And of course, there were a number of other great Hawaiian surfers. So we had a band of great brothers who were competitive surfers, and we all competed against each other fiercely, but we also were great friends.
Yeah, and that actually is one of the most important thing in surfing, right? That there is like, even today, there is that level of competition, but at the end, after, everybody's friend. Like, I mean, not 100%, but most of them, then they are friend, right? And there is that kind of friendly atmosphere that I think is very important, bring us back to being human being, right?
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah, we're brothers who rode the waves, and we competed when we had to. The rest of the time, we're very close friends.
Yeah, and that stays for life. That's amazing. So what you're saying to me now, I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We discussed about the Duke, of course, and being on the team of the Duke, but you met him as well in person. How was he? Do you have any stories to share with us about the Duke?
Well, of course, as a young boy on the beach, Duke was a great figure. He was always a very dignified man who carried himself, quite frankly, like royalty. And he was treated with a lot of respect as a result. I became a member of the Duke surf team, and there was a Duke Kahanamoku restaurant in the international marketplace, which is a very popular entertainer. So that the owner of the restaurant made a surf team to try to make Duke Kahanamoku products, and he made me captain of the Duke surf team. So I spent the last 3 years of Duke Kahanamoku's life with him. Almost every day, I'd pick him up and we'd have lunch and do things. Wow. And then we went on promotional trips for the state of Hawaii. We'd promote Hawaii and, promoted the Duke Kahanamoku products. So I got to know the man probably as good as anybody. Plus, I had the what was knowing him in his wisdom years, or later on in years when he could reflect on his entire life. And in looking back on it, I wish more Hawaiian kids nowadays would emulate Duke. There's a big problem now with a lot of the youth in Hawaii and in the world, for that matter, and especially there's a big negative. These kids are protesting, and everything seems to be no. And everything with Duke Kahanamoku was aloha.
Yeah.
Duke did not know the word aoli, which is no in Hawaiian. He was aloha, not aoli. He was always gracious and receptive, and I never heard the man speak an ill word of anybody. And I think that goes back to what I think the real greatness is in most people is the content of their character. You know, how good of a person they are spiritually, not how wealthy they are, not how good looking they are, you know, not how strong they are, but how their character is. Spiritually, Duke was a very special man.
Thank you for sharing this with us today. In effect, surfing with Aloha, it's more than just a name. It's about a way of living life, right?
That's a good way. Surfing with Aloha is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you carry those values with you wherever you go. You know, in the surf, out of the surf, or you know, my life has been. I've gone down a lot of different roads. You know, I've been in the White House and had dinner with the President of the United States, and I've been to a number of other countries. And Aloha is a good thing to have with you, no matter where you go.
Definitely, I completely agree with you. We discussed before about the Pipeline Masters. So in 50 years next year, 2021, do you see a change between the today's edition and 1971, or everything stayed the same and only the time passed? Or have you seen an evolution of this contest from your point of view?
Oh, profound change. The first event, I had to pick six contestants myself based on their reputations. There was no ranking system. There were no major pro surfing contests. And I just picked who I thought would be the six most competitive. Remember, I got them on ABC Wide World of Sports. So I got television coverage, and it was so archaic back then that the man who filmed the show for ABC television was a man named Larry Lindbergh, and he filmed it in 16 millimeter because they had no videotaping or digital cameras back then. So it was very, very archaic. And the first six surfers went out, and you know, the rest is history. Now I think the Pipeline is certainly the longest enduring event in surfing, but also it's the epitome of championships. I mean, if you win the Pipeline Masters, you are go down in history as one of the best ever.
I mean, in I guess so. In 50 years, it's quite a lot of event, right? But 50. So, but thanks a lot. Thank you for sharing. So, you wrote two books. The first one, The Soul of Surfing is Hawaiian, right, in 1997. And the second one, Local Boy, a Memoir, in 2017. Are you planning to release more books, or?
It's funny you ask. I just did release a new book, and it's just starting to hit the market now. You can search it on your search engine, but it's more contemporary political and Hawaii. It's called No Can, and it's kind of a play on words, and it has to do with things that can happen in Hawaii or things that others may not see happen in Hawaii. So it talks about economic opportunity and a whole mess of things, issues that are facing Hawaii today, everything from financial issues to energy, to land use, to political parties, to super ferry, to economic development, and all of the things that affect day-to-day life. And it has a lot to do with the proposals that I think would make things better. And that's where the title comes from, can or no can. And can or no can is kind of a pidgin English saying from local people. Can means, oh, yeah, you can do it. No can means, nope, it's not going to work. So each little, I have little vignettes or little, little parts of the can, no can, and people can agree with what I'm proposing or disagree. So it's kind of an interactive book that way, but I think it's going to have a lot of appeal. It's written directly for pretty much the local market, but it has some international things. I'm a big proponent, for instance, of small modular nuclear reactors, and they're nuclear reactors of 250 megawatts or less. I think they can make Hawaii energy independent and drive down the cost of energy and drive up the opportunity to do a lot of things that couldn't be done because of our dependency on foreign crude oil and coal. The book deals with subjects like that. Some are, very political, and others are deal with just cultural and lifestyle issues. Not much to do with surf. Although I do have one proposal that I've tried to plant the seed up here in Hawaii. We do a real good job in the United States, but I don't know how we work on the coast of the Persian Gulf there. But we zone land very well. We say this zone is for housing, this zone is for cities, this zone is for conservation, nothing. This zone is for farming. But we don't do a good job of zoning our ocean. And my proposal is from the park on the beach out to 3 miles, which is at the territorial limits of Hawaii, we should zone the ocean and say, this is a conservation zone. No one does anything in this. We have to save this for the future. This is a recreation zone. This is for surfing and paddling. And this is a commercial zone. This is for, harbors and commercial activity. Fish farming, for instance, we have a big basin that would be really good for aquaculture and things like that. So what I'm advocating is we take a more intelligent look at the use of the ocean and zone the ocean and then try to encourage, economic and biological diversity in the ocean as we do on land. So it's called ocean zoning. But those are the kind of things that I like to advocate. I like to think my strongest asset is innovation, is making new things happen, like I did with float surfing and with the pipeline.
And ocean is something that we need to protect, right? Because it's been abused, if you want to say, by pollution, plastic pollution, and we need to protect what Mother Nature gives us, right? At the end, it's very important.
No kidding.
For our
what's even worse than that, even in some areas where they build on the beach and they change the whole topography of the ocean, there have been some terrible mistakes made in the ocean that have literally destroyed surf sites or changed the currents in ocean and surf, forever.
Yeah, definitely. And some surf spots that were very nice in the past, also they disappear because maybe they just created a pier or something. I was talking about with Joël de Rosnay, that he was is in the first series of the Temple of Surf podcast. He was the founder of the Surf Club de France, but he's also
I've spent some wonderful time with Joel and his wife Estelle.
So
in Paris too.
Yeah, and so we were talking about the fact that when a new pier has been created over there, one of the most famous and most beautiful spots disappeared. And today people do not have it that anymore. It was completely natural only because some man-made construction.
Alexander, let me leave this thought with you and your listeners. And we have to be more than protective, though. We have to be advocates. And here's what I'm advocating. I'm advocating in areas where there's swells, you do a lot of research, and you start creating more artificial reefs to create waves. Like there's a lot of shoreline areas where the surf comes, but breaks on shore. Well, you go, 100, 200 yards offshore, and you make yourself an artificial reef where it will be shallow enough that the good waves could break. And you can design the reef so it have a left slide and a right slide. And so you could actually start manufacturing good reefs for good surf in areas that don't have any waves at all.
Yeah.
So that's the way we have to think. We have to think about innovate ways to make surfing more accessible, number one, but more surf sites.
Yeah. And you said a lot about innovation during our interview, so I guess it's something that is very close to you, right?
Yeah, that's what I love doing. I love planting new seeds.
Yeah, definitely. It's good, huh? Like it keeps you young, 74 years old young, right?
Well, I like to think young, but my body is very beat up. I run this body very hard. I've gone through life with my foot all the way down on the accelerator, so I'm paying the price now.
But your as you said, your mind is young. So that's actually it's on the body we cannot do anything, right? But as long the mind is there and is creating amazing books and amazing stories and so congratulations for that. We're gonna finish our interview with a short Q&A session, so a question and answer. Please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind, okay?
Okay.
The best surfboard that you ever ridden?
Big Red. It was an 11-foot Dick Brewer gun. I rode at Waimea Bay in 1965.
Wow. Your favorite shaper?
Ooh, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Can I pass on that one?
Of course, for sure, no problem. Okay. Personal question, your favorite song or your favorite artist, like musical artist?
Well, I that's really difficult. Some are really good. One of my favorite singers is people won't even know who I'm talking about, but it was a woman named Dionne Warwick.
Dionne Warwick?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any specific song?
No, I really enjoy themes from movies. Like I just enjoyed watching a series on Netflix called Outlander, and there's a guy named Jamie McCrary, a Scottish man who wrote the music for that. So I really enjoy things like that. The music from Outlander. Another great movie with a great musical score is Lion Woman. It's a very esoteric movie. It's actually from Norway, but I like that. But I kind of have esoteric taste in music. I'm not a pop culture music guy. I don't listen to pop culture music.
But I look at Dionne Warwick, and in effect, he's super famous. I Say a Little Prayer. It's a super famous song. So definitely that one is a great one. Is a great one.
But she had such a powerful. I mean, she was just powerful figure, and so I do remember her. But like I said, I'd rather I like genre music and musical themes from movies and TV series are things I really enjoy. Because it kind of plants the seeds of the thoughts of the movie, such as Outlander.
Okay, definitely. I'll look at that. Your favorite surf spot?
Oh, without a doubt, Macau. And let me say this. I don't say this without great thought. Macau is the most versatile surfing site in the world. And let's tell you why. Sunset Beach. You can surf it from the inside reef 4 to 5 feet. At about 15 plus, it starts closing out. It's too big to ride. Waimea Bay doesn't start breaking good till it's 15. It closes out at about 30. Haleiwa is good from 2 to about 12, 15, and it closes out. Pipeline 3 to feet that starts closing out. So all the surf spots have very, what I would call, narrow windows of surfing. But Makaha, you can surf with your children in what they call a Manahuni baby contest in surf that's maybe 1 to 2 feet off the inside reef. And then 2 days later, it can be 25 feet at the point.
Wow.
And then there's everything in between. Some days it could be 4 to 6 and fun play waves. Some days it could be 10 to 12 at the bowl. And then some days it could be 25 feet off the point on waves that if you make a mistake, you could drown. So Makaha is the most versatile spot. And if you look on the internet, at my old surfing pictures, you'll see a lot of pictures of old Makaha back in the day. But it's kind of been lost in the hustle bustle of the modern world. I like to say nowadays that Makaha is one of surfing's best secrets. But for me, it's the best and most versatile wave in the world.
Okay, fantastic. Your favorite surfer?
Oh, I have I should once again try to avoid that, but I have a great number of surfers.
Yeah.
For real big wave riding, guys that I looked up to for their bravado and just unbridled bravery. Buzzy Trent, Pat Kern, Wally Forsythe. For guys that I surfed with, of course, Joey Cabell and the first Mr. Pipeline, Butch Van Arsdale. But I think besides Duke Kahanamoku and his character, his spiritual value for surfing as the patriarch, I think the best surfer in history of surfing is unequivocally Kelly Slater. And what particularly is heartwarming for me with Kelly, I treat him like a son. He's just a wonderful person. He's a very caring, unpretentious, fine young man. So then, of course, there are a few women who I admired tremendously. Margot Olberg and Lynn Boy, the first women professional champions. And then Carissa Moore now, whose roots are in Hawaii. She's remember we talked about innovation?
Yeah.
Here's something I would like to innovate. And I think there's a big movement now about gender equality, that women are equal to men. And that women want, like the World Surf League said, women have to make the same prize money as men. Well, if that's true, why doesn't surfing become the first sport where the women compete against the men? Mm-hmm. If they're equal, why don't the women compete against men? So I would like to seriously have a third division in professional surfing. I'd like to have the men's division, the women's division, and the general gender neutral division where men and women compete together. Let's say you take the top 6 from a year, the top 16 women, and you have them compete against each other yearly. So you'd have basically a third division that's gender neutral, and it's under the guise of equal work, equal pay. You got to compete against each other if you want to get the same amount of prize money.
Interesting, After you after all, you can bring this idea to the federation and see if they're gonna go for it. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I would be willing to bet it will be a long time before that happens.
Yeah, but it takes time for things to happen, right? It takes time also for surf to be inducted in. Surf to be into the Olympic sports, right? We were waiting for Tokyo Olympics to happen this year. Unfortunately, it's been postponed to the next year, but it happened, right? So,
yeah, that's let me tell you something. That's something I feel very good about it being inducted. But I think that they've made a huge mistake, and I was fortunate enough to be invited to Menlo, California, to see Kelly Slater's first wave machine, and I was there. And they could have 6-foot beautiful surf in Tokyo for the Olympics, but they chose to have it in the ocean at a spot called Shiba. Well, Shiba gets good sometimes, but sometimes there's no surf at all. So they're running a huge, huge risk of having the Olympics with no waves.
Yes.
And they could have easily had, and you've probably seen many times the pictures of Kelly Slater's wave machine or other wave machines. They could have had guaranteed beautiful surf that, you ride 3 waves in the machine and that's your score. And everybody gets a wave and there's waves for everybody. But when they have it at Chiba, quite frankly, I hope they have waves, but there's a chance they might not. So I think they made a big mistake.
Yeah, let's for the sport. Let's hope that there will be wave that day. And but
I sure hope so.
Yeah, but
I sure hope so.
Definitely, if you use like the new technology and the wave pool, definitely you have also a show that is guaranteed to the people that are watching, right? Because Olympics are such a huge how do you call it, show, right? That everybody watch from all over the world, and you cannot just simple saying there is no surf, right? What to do?
You bring up a very good point, because in Kelly's machine, they have bleachers and little cabanas along the whole half mile of the wave. So all along the side, there's places where you could, in a surfing contest in the ocean, you can only stand on the beach and look out. In the surf machines, you can look at it from any vantage point. You can look at it from the shore, on the side, or even from behind the wave. So it leads for a much more user-friendly spectator sport.
Let's hope sooner or later they will. Maybe in the next Olympics or the next, they will decide to use the machine if nature doesn't provide, right? So the last question is a little bit unusual, has nothing to do with surf, but we ask to everybody. So we want to know your best relationship advice.
Wow, that's a tough. Tolerance, I guess, would be one word that would summarize it. Tolerate other people's different ideas and different perspectives. But I don't want to have that be confused with tolerating evil, but tolerating personalities and people's ideas and people's quirkiness. Some people are very quirky. So just tolerate others. And if people are something you don't particularly like, just ignore it. But we all in this world have to be a little more tolerant. There's too much, you got to do it my way or no way going on in this world. And it's resulting in a lot of identity politics and a lot of needless strife, like what's going on in America right now. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the world must have a little bit more of tolerance. I agree with you. Actually, not a little bit more. Must have more tolerance. I definitely agree with you. Thanks a lot, Mr. Hemmings, for being on the show with me today, and I look forward to talk to you very soon.
Well, I look forward to you coming to Hawaii and visiting us, and I'll buy you a Mai Tai rum drink and a Mai burger and take you out canoe surfing. Let's
do that. Definitely. I will come with my family. But if I will be there, I will give you a call. Thank you, Mr. Hemmings. You've been a great guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha to you.
Aloha. Aloha. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!